All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Shelby Sears. I'm one of your career services coordinators here at NMSU Global Campus. And today I'm going to be talking about some resume writing tips, um, going over basically what entails a resume, what it means, some best practices going forward. And towards the end, I'll be sharing some resources and tools that you can utilize. And like I said earlier, if you have questions, comments, anything like that, I will not be able to probably look at them right away, but whenever I conclude the PowerPoint presentation and stop sharing, I'll look at your questions and answer them accordingly, okay? But feel free to unmute yourself, ask those questions and things like that, or put those questions in the chat for the time being. Okay. So this workshop's going to cover basically the bare basics and then kind of a little more in-depth information as to what is a resume, what's the purpose of it, the best practices when it comes to drafting your resume, formatting it, looking over the structure. There's these two cool things called an objective and a summary, and if they're important to even include on your resume, and if you do, which one to pick. We're going to talk about the applicant tracking system as well. It's kind of something that's existed for a little while, but more people are getting more privy to it. The importance of resume tailoring, looking at those keywords, making sure that your resume matches the job that you're applying for. You're not using just one resume for hundreds of jobs, right? Some do's and don'ts. And then, like I said, at the very end, we're going to share some resources and some templates to help prepare you uh, for whenever you want to start putting together your resume, if you haven't already. So yeah, what is a resume anyway? So by definition, a resume is basically a formal document that job applicants create to itemize their qualifications for a position. Basically, it's to showcase your attributes. A lot of companies nowadays require a job application. From a personal standpoint, I can't recall a time where I didn't use a resume, right? So there's some entry-level positions that may not require one. They definitely require an application. Um, so it's usually accompanied by a custom cover letter that you help put together, again, highlighting your attributes, why you'd be a good fit for that position, and kind of where your skills and expertise that are highlighted in your resume would play into this role that you're applying for. In regards to building your resume, there is some things to talk about whenever it comes to drafting and formatting your resume. You want to make sure that it's legible, clean, easy to read, easy to follow. It tells a story basically. It's your story, honestly, at the end of the day. And similar to like a portfolio or a CV, it's really important, and this is kind of a best practice thing, to kind of create a working copy that details your comprehensive work history. So everything you've ever done work-wise, your education, your skills, your certification, all of that good stuff, even licenses and things like that too. I personally have a working copy. It's just a Word document that I have everything I've ever done in it. And I like to use that to help me build different versions of my resume. That's the whole point of that. And that's also so you don't lose track of anything. That way you're not scratching your head at the end of the day thinking, okay, what was I doing in this role? Oh, I can always go back to that document and put that stuff in this resume that I'm building right now. So it kind of helps you down the line in the future when you're applying for positions. You want to think about putting short descriptions outlining your role if you need to go back to look at the job description of the current job you're in to help give yourself like refresh your memory, because even though we might know what we're doing every day, we might not know how to like convey that basically in like 3 to 5 sentences, right? So we're basically giving ourselves and doing a story about ourselves in this resume. So dates and locations and names of employer, you want to be mindful of your spacing and how much real estate you have in those couple of pages that you're using this resume or building this resume, I should say. Um, for example, you can put the dates of when you worked there, from let's say July 2021 to present. That's perfectly fine. As far as location of employer and name of employer, yes, you definitely want to list, the role that you had, and then you want to also list the name of the company. Sometimes people want to put like the street address, the state, zip code, all that good stuff of the employer, and that's not really necessary. You can put like maybe Austin, Texas for location if you want to, or you can leave that part out. Again, you want to think about how much real estate you have to work with. Typically, within a resume, especially for our students, you want to try to keep it between no more than like 2 to 3 pages. Sometimes anything more than that, the person reviewing your resume or even the applicant tracking system isn't really going to spend a whole lot of time going through and sifting through your resume when there's hundreds of other applicants that they also have to look at. So what you put on that first page is crucial. Um, you want to think about using easy to read fonts. So, you know, thinking about our common ones that we use when we're doing essays and things like that for professors. So Calibri is good. Tahoma is a really good one to use. Times New Roman is the most basic one I know, but it's still one that people still use to this day. And that's because it's easy to read. Another thing that you want to kind of make sure that you're including, and this might seem like common sense to some of you, and that's great that it is, but you want to make sure that you're including your education, your work history, your skills, certifications, your licenses. On that note of certifications and licenses, you might want to also include the date that you received them and if there's an expiration date. For example, I was a notary for a while and I had to, for legal reasons, put the date that I received that notary licensure and the date that it expired. So that can be somewhere between just putting the year. You don't have to put the exact date. So like July 15th, right? You don't need to put that, but you could put like it was from this year to this year. Um, Definitely want to include any volunteerism, any involvement that you had outside of your work roles. If you don't have a lot of work experience, this is something that is really important too. That volunteerism, those internships, things like that are really important to include on your resume. Internships are work experience. So don't try to sell yourself short by not including it if it was unpaid or something like that, or was over maybe the span of 6 months. It's experience, it's vital to maybe a position that you're applying for, so you might want to include it. There is a thing about people putting references at the either end of their resume, or they might put, you might hear this often, references available upon request. So putting references is no longer really necessary on a resume, but make sure that you've communicated with those people that you want to list as references, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be putting that information in your application, not on your resume. So just be mindful of that. That's their private information, and it feels a little bit invasive when that information is shared, especially if you're not including your extensive contact information on your resume. And I'll get to that here in just a little bit. Think about the structure on your most recent achievements and occupations. So for example, if you're somebody who has graduated or recently received a degree, you're going to want to put your education near the top of your resume. Sometimes people put like skills or maybe some certifications near the top. Depends on the relevancy, one, with that role that they're applying for, and then two, when they received those things. For me personally, I have listed my work history on a kind of like right-hand side, and my education is on the left-hand side. So they're kind of like hanging out together side by side, so you can see what I use with my degree, and it translates into how I've been kind of moving up in the workforce, basically. All righty, moving on. So we have objectives and summaries. Which one should you use and what's the difference basically? So when you think about objectives, you're sharing your goal basically. Like, hey, this is why I want this position, and I'm going to tell you why with this resume basically, right? So it's like a 1 to 2 sentence overview, kind of like your short-term professional goals, and showcasing again why you'd be a good fit. So they're usually placed at the top of the resume to capture that hiring manager's attention and make your career goals really clear. A good example of a summary, a resume objective is this one over here on the right in that little bubble. A highly driven recent business school graduate seeking a full-time position in finance where I can lend my knowledge of market analytics to help your organization improve profitability. That's one sentence, and it tells me a lot about this individual. It means that they are highly motivated and they're a recent business school graduate, so they got that fresh knowledge of business school, and they're looking to grow in this role, right? It's a growth opportunity for them. Versus a summary. So a summary is highlighting your expertise. You may have extensive experience in a type of field, and you're going back to school for maybe getting your bachelor's degree to help give you some more lateral opportunities, right? So it's a short description at the top of your resume that describes your experience, your qualifications, and skills. Including the summary allows you to showcase your strongest assets right away. So a good summary example right here in this bubble, we have a compassionate BSN with 10 years plus of experience in advanced patient care, including certifications in neonatal resuscitation and management of assaultive behavior. So this person is very knowledgeable in the medical field. They would make a great asset to me and my team if I was the hiring manager, right? But this is a good history of this person's work experience. So think of objective and summary in those literal terms. Okay. So the ATS, what is it? What does it mean? And how does it affect you as a job seeker? So if you're applying to dozens of applicate or jobs, whether it be on LinkedIn, Indeed, or even on our Handshake portal, right? You're not hearing anything back. And if you are hearing anything back, it's crickets, right? So it may not be you per se or your work history. It could be your application. It could be your resume that's the problem. And it could be the fact that they're using an applicant tracking system. An applicant tracking system is a software application that enables electronic handling of the entire recruitment and hiring process. So the way that it works is it scans resumes looking for keywords and maybe a few maybe sentence structures, buzzwords, things like that, that also are listed on the job application, basically the job description. So it's reading those job descriptions, it's reading your resume, it's reading your application, and it's seeing if the work relates back to the posting, right? So some resumes get lost in that process. A lot of companies, especially Fortune 500 companies, use applicant tracking systems, and it's great to kind of be ahead of the curve by tailoring your resume, looking at job descriptions, the skills, the requirements that are needed, and seeing where you can maybe align your work experience to those job descriptions. There's some scanners out there that you can use to scan your resume against the job description and kind of get some feedback firsthand. One of those resources is JobScan, and then there's My Perfect Resume that you can scan your resume for keywords, qualifications, and tips on how to improve your resume. There are some, I think, limitations with these though. For the time being, I want to say that with JobScan, there is I think, a limit on how many you can have scanned for free. So there is a payment associated with that feature or that offering. And then with My Perfect Resume, I think there's also limitation there too. But at least you get one right out the way. And that way you can maybe get some feedback on direct, immediately on your resume. And just to add to that, meeting with your career service coordinators, myself, I have two other individuals that I work with, Christy Hare and Ricardo Estevito. We're here to help you. We know about this stuff and we can help you highlight your attributes and look at the positions that you're looking at and applying for and where the disconnect is happening, if there is such a disconnect. Okay. Resume do's and don'ts. Again, some of these might be pretty obvious and pretty understood for the most part, but we still see some of these hiccups in hiring committees today. So First and foremost, you want to use clear professional writing when describing your occupations and roles and objectives. Again, look at your current job description. You can always get that from your HR department. If not, you can just think about what you do to your day to day, and then rewrite that in a way that is more professional, highlights your work. Make sure you're using present tense in those current roles. So daily administrative duties, I conduct leadership training. I didn't do it in the past. If I'm doing it in my current role, it's present tense. So remember that. Do keep an open Word doc, like I was talking about earlier, and add to that Word doc as you earn and gain positions, you gain certifications, you gain education, and keep it up to date. That way, again, you're not having to scramble and build all of that and spend hours and hours building a resume when you already have everything to go. Kind of same thing. Do tailor your resume to the jobs you're applying for. It does kind of show whenever you use a one-stop shop resume for 30, 40, 50 applications, especially if you're just doing that Indeed easy or LinkedIn easy apply. It's important to just go straight to the company's website and see how they're doing their applications process, and then formulate your resume based on that too. Definitely include any internships and volunteer work. I mentioned this earlier. It's very important to include that. And you could include the time frame that you did these internships too. It's good to know basically how fresh is this information? Okay, they did this a year ago. Okay, but it's still relevant work. And to our don'ts. You don't want to use fonts that are difficult to read. You don't want to use multiple fonts. I know that we all have this we want to be creative. We want to make our resume look pretty or look really attractive to that hiring manager. And if they have an ATS in place, your application might get lost because it's hard to read with that ATS. It's not going to find the information that's on your resume in the right way, basically. So the less complicated your fonts are, and using brightly colored, things like using maybe like pink or lime green in your resume, it's not going to help, basically. You want to make it clean, concise, professional, and kind of maintain that throughout your resume. Don't leave out dates and locations of work history. I mentioned this earlier. When it comes to location, you can put, like I said, Austin, Texas. You don't have to put like the address, zip code, any of that stuff. Or if it was a remote position, you can put remote. I tend to do that too sometimes. But don't leave out those dates. Some people get a little bit worrisome about the date process because they said, oh, well, I held a lot of positions over maybe a short amount of time, but that was because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with work. That kind of comes back to the tailoring your resume. We might not need to include everything on that resume, right? For example, I had some retail experience before I got into journalism. Well, I don't include that retail experience anymore. It's not relevant to me anymore, right? But let's say I go back to doing retail at some point, hypothetically speaking, I might put that back on there. That was years ago, sure, but I'm going to put those dates on there because it's still relevant work history and it shows validity in your application. Don't include a photo unless, and then there's just some differences here with like UK resumes that use the CV format. But typically in the US, we don't do photos. It's just something that's not common and not necessary. Unless somewhere in the application process, and it maybe like be for something like a graphic design position or something that may require a headshot. Otherwise, it's not necessary. Your name, your phone number, and an email address is typically all you should put at the top of the resume anyway. Don't include every job unless it's relevant to the position, unless you have minimal work experience. That's an understanding. A lot of our students are dealing with that sometimes, and they need guidance in that area. You're welcome to meet with us, and we can work out how to highlight, even if it might be minimal, how to highlight your experience and make it still valuable to your position that you're applying for. Don't upload an unrecognizable source. The best format to use when you're saving your resume to upload it into that application portal is a PDF. It's readable by almost every single organization out there. You can do a Word doc too, but that's also susceptible to getting accidentally edited or deleted, like all the content, if you submit it as a Word document, unless you protect it. So PDF, it's plain and it's understandable. And last but not least, again, this might seem obvious, don't falsify your resume. I know we were talking about applicant tracking systems and making sure that your resume kind of matches some of the language and skills and requirements that are on applications. That doesn't mean that you should falsify them. Think about your work history. Think about the experience that you possess. You know, I work in IT and I have experience with Java, have experience with Linux, right? So if I don't put that on my resume, but the job description says it, why would you be selling yourself short, basically? So make sure that you're not falsifying your resume, but if your credentials, your skills, your experience line up with those job descriptions, you know, see where you can work that in. All right. I also wanted to include some resume examples. These are actually templates as well that you can utilize on Office 365. It's either Office or now Microsoft 365. I can never remember what the new name is, but you have access nonetheless as a student. So these are two really nice resume examples. I like them, first of all, because they are clean. The sections are broken up and clearly defined. They both have objectives, yes. But if you want to do a summary instead, you could easily replace an objective with a summary depending on, you know, your goals, career moves, etc. So for this one here on the left, we have Andre. So right away, they included their experience at the top, education's towards the bottom a little bit. Now, if I was somebody who just earned my degree, I would put that education towards the top part, above the experience. So this maybe tells me that, okay, Andre's experience right now is more recent. So they put that they did these different things in this role, okay? Skills are at the bottom. That's okay. Some people put skills towards the top, or they might put certifications there where skills goes at the bottom. Just to make sure that you clearly define the sections and that your resume has a nice flow to it. This one has a pretty good flow to it. I just like the structure of it. It's pretty simple in its style. Moving on to Angelica's. So she put her title and put her contact information over here on that little right sidebar, and then an about me. So looks like she's applying for maybe a designer position, so like a web designer position. That about me is kind of like a summary and objective combined. It's not unheard of for people to put an about me. Sometimes on CVs you have an about me. Looks like they also put their education to the side. So they kind of utilize the real estate of this document by dividing it up in half, so to speak. So we got some things over here on the right. So right away I see her contact information. Okay, I see that objective at the top and experience is kind of front and center. So that's what we really want to focus on. That's where they're guiding us basically. The education is over there to the side, skills are over there to the side. One comment that I could probably use to critique these would be, I would have liked to see if there are some certifications. I think certifications are pretty important. There's a lot of career fields that require certifications. So if you already have that experience, definitely include that. So if they had those, I would put them maybe under where they have skills. And then on the Andres one, probably right underneath their education. So these are good examples to use and to think about whenever you're putting together your resume, or if you're doing a complete overhaul and redoing your resume. Some keywords and phrases that a lot of hiring managers are looking for is kind of a lot of transferable skills, a lot of communication skills, being able to be adaptable to change, problem solving skills, being dynamic, having organizational skills. All of these keywords and phrases are things that are not only good to include on your resume, but really good to include on your cover letter too, if they relate to yourself. So for me, I think my top 5 are customer service, adaptable, attention to detail, problem solving, and then let's just say team oriented, because that shows that you're able to work in a collaborative atmosphere. Here are some resources and templates. So as NMSU Global students, you have free access to Office 365. It's in your My NMSU portal under your apps. So if you go there, you can search. I want to say you open up Microsoft 365. You can just type in resumes or resume templates at the very top in the search bar, and hundreds pop up. And then you can continue your search and go to Microsoft's website and download the free templates. Definitely utilize that as a resource while you're a student here because it's free. And who doesn't love free? Other good free and somewhat free options, Canva. Canva is a really good one. I personally like to use Canva for building my resume. Um, Sometimes I go back to 365. It just really depends on the jobs I'm applying for, to be honest. And then Google Docs. If you have a Google or a Gmail account, you have access to a lot of templates there as well through Google. We have some global campus resources as well. I put the links to keywords to boost your resume and how to write your resume with little to no experience in the chat. So you're welcome to grab those links and take a look at them, bookmark them for later. ONET Online is a site that is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Department of Labor. It helps us tremendously with finding occupation information, finding out salary information, job openings, everything you can think of, it's there at ONET. So you can type in occupations, you can search occupations if you're not really sure what the job might be that you're thinking of. I love sharing it with my students when I meet with them one-on-one. It is a wonderful resource and tool. It's great for if you're getting started and you want to compare occupations, and that can also help you with resume building. All right. Questions? I'm going to go ahead and open the chat to take a look at anybody's questions that they may have, but you're welcome to unmute yourself. Just to give a quick update, we do have more workshops throughout the spring semester, so definitely go to our Global Student Success Series. You get emails about the registration, so definitely take a look at your NMSU inbox for those and when to sign up and register. You can register for, I want to say, as soon as you get those emails, you can register for them. We also have an upcoming NMSU Global Career Fair. We're going to be doing that on March 26th from 11 to 1 p.m. Mountain Time. So you can sign up using this link. It's nmsu.link/VCF2025. And let's look at our questions. If there is a gap in your resume, should I clarify in the resume or just in the cover letter? That is a great question. So gaps in the resume, they happen. People have to maybe stop working to take care of, what's going on at home. Or let's say we're traveling a lot because our spouse is military, and we have to make those changes, make those sacrifices. There's so many reasons why you might have a gap in your resume. The way I see it, and other people can feel free to chime in too, if I notice a gap in the resume, it doesn't really bring up any red flags for me. What it might mean to me is life happened, right? Maybe you're focusing on school and you're going to school. So as far as clarifying that, like the reason for the gap in my resume, I think that might be more appropriate for your cover letter. And that cover letter can give you that opportunity to say, I might have this gap in my resume. This is a little bit why. And you don't have to spend, paragraphs explaining. It could be like 2 to 3 sentences at the most. But the experience that I do have, the credentials that I do have, this is how I utilize them, and this is where kind of my experience lines up with this position and why I'm seeking this position to be an applicant, right? Um, Gaps in resumes happen. I think it's more understood and more acceptable, more accepting now than it used to be in the past. There's less discrimination happening with that. Um, for me personally, I'm on hiring committees for NMSU, depending on the roles and things like that. And if I notice one, like I said, it doesn't bring up any red flags to me. It's something that maybe if we get the chance to have an interview with you, if you get to that interview portion, you can share it there. Usually 9 times out of 10, it's never brought up. So it's not as taboo as it used to be. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Yeah, of course. You're welcome. And my phone number and my email address are here on the screen too. So if you need to reach out to me with questions, maybe you didn't get a chance to ask something and you thought of it later, or maybe you want to know who to meet with, who your career services coordinator is. We're all assigned different amounts of students too, because we have a pretty good increasing population of global students. So it's really exciting for us. So we're really happy to be serving you in all the ways that we can. So we like to meet with students one-on-one to have that nice individual, holistic approach to career advising. So you're welcome to reach out to me if you have questions relating to career, or how to make an appointment with one of us too. We do send out things in your Navigate student portal. So that's also another way to contact us as well. All right. Well, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Appreciate everybody coming to listen to today's workshop. Um, if you have questions or anything like that, I'm here for the next few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.